Well, hello everybody. Good evening. Look at all of these amazing people that are joining us. Woot woot! Oh my
What?
God, and we have
Yeah.
Dr. Dre in the house. Everybody, Dr. Dre is on my webinar right now.
Where's Dr. Dre?
Her name is actually Andy. She's
Oh,
the ultimate Dr. Dre. Wow, this is a really awesome turnout. Cool.
already a question.
Really?
No, it's Chrissy Smith saying hi. Hi,
Oh, hello.
Chrissy.
You say hi to Chrissy. Well, I always like to give everybody an extra moment or so to join us and catch up here. Welcome to my webinar. I shall hold everybody hostage all the time for the next hour, and then I'm gonna sprinkle you guys with some amazing magic, and then yeah, I'll let you guys go. So welcome everybody. If this is your first webinar with me, you will see a question box in which you can type your comments or questions, and Mr. Graves Burke, which is my handyman over here, is going to help field the. Wait, do you want to help me field the questions? I just assume we do these all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you're right. There are no You got a hello heart from Christina Cass. Thank you, Christina.
Oh, hey, Christina.
Stacy,
Hello.
Stacy, I'm assuming it's Lemieux, has raised her hand for some reason. Stacy, go ahead and just type whatever you have in the questions, unless you were raising your hand asking Maggie for a high five, in which case, high five.
Wabash. I like to give high fives. Cool.
You do.
All right, let's go and get started. Welcome, everybody. We are going to be covering a really awesome intro to online courses. And if I do say so myself, there's going to be a lot of really awesome updated information in here. And a little side note, Graves does not know what's happening. Graves has not seen this webinar yet. And I'll do a quick introduction here in a moment. But he is joining us as our guest unicorn of the evening. And of course, my name is Maggie Christina. And who am I? These webinars are always fun because I'm like, I actually get to introduce myself. Just to give you guys a super quick intro to who I am and why you should be listening to me and all the amazing things we're going to be covering today. Look, I started my first business when I was 12. I was actually doing program design with my school district and a local dog business or pet business when I was actually 11. I literally started eating, breathing, and sleeping pet industry stuff from the time I can remember, really. And as the story goes, by the time I was 17, I found myself consulting with several dog organizations and nonprofits and trainers and businesses really early on. And around 2006, this is when I really started becoming, obsessed is a strong word, and it's probably pretty accurate, obsessed with the process of human education, with people education. And I got into teaching everything that I could get my hands on as far as teaching different skills back to people just so that I can understand people education. And in 2012, everything changed because I had my cute little son, which you guys can see in the picture. And at the time, what I don't mention in this slide that I want to actually mention to you guys super quick, at the time I was living in Alaska. And for anybody that's ever visited Alaska, I know Graves has been up there at least once. It is this huge state. It is an enormous state, and there's very few dog trainers. And so I found myself being in this very awkward predicament of being a specialist in aggression. It was really good at the time when I was still doing training because I had multiple dog training businesses. And I found myself in this unique position because I had clients I needed to be able to help, and often people were, hundreds if not thousands of miles away. And so I had to develop a way of creating a really efficient system in which my clients with very, very volatile dogs had to effectively learn to progress through their issues with their dog using me, but I couldn't always get there. And so this is the kind of the birthplace of when I really started sinking myself into online coursework. And it was an interesting interesting transition because in that time that I just shared with you guys where I went outside of the industry norm and I started learning how to teach people, I went through a whole bunch of different things. A lot of it was outdoor based. I learned how to climb mountains. I led like large groups of people through, strategic climbing elements, ropes courses. I even taught Hewitt classes, helicopter underwater escape training. And even though all of this stuff was really good, I learned a tremendous amount about program design and human facilitation and just, how people learn. The difference with online courses is that you completely have to take that physical attribute out of it, which was a challenge. And before we get started, because I know I just did a quick intro, this is, who I am and kind of why I'm tackling this subject in the industry. Before we move on, here's Gravesburg. He is my magical unicorn. Graves, I didn't have another picture. I figured I just used this one. So before we continue, I just wanted to give you guys a quick synopsis of who this mysterious unicorn is that's joining us. This is Graves, and Graves is also, much like myself, been in business for himself literally his entire life. And he doesn't often, because Graves, I must say that you really are very quiet, I guess, about all of the achievements that you have made in your lifetime. Graves is an incredible business person, an incredible teacher and instructor, and has also developed not just one, but two multi-million-dollar ad agencies, advertising agencies in his lifetime. And he's just a really tremendous person that not just helps me in my business, but he also helps me co-facilitate and teach my clients in our leadership guild. So thank you, Graves, for taking the extra time out of your schedule to join all of us here today to cover, because this is a really important topic, which is,
You're most welcome.
getting. Yeah, because I think it's important, the age of the internet has changed so much. We now know intellectually that there's these things out there called online courses, and everybody wants to know more about them, right? This is exactly why we're all getting together today. And the thing that I'm really going to be focusing on with everybody today is how you can take not just the emerging online courses. They've been around for about 6-7 years now, plus or minus, but they really became popular about 5 or 6 years ago, and they've already went through a period of growth, right? They already have peaked to an extent. People are discovering better ways of facilitating and organizing these things. So what I'm going to be covering with you guys today is actually the updated version of what online courses actually look like today. And Graves has got a ton of experience with this as well, which is why I asked him if he would be willing to join us. And a big part of the advanced version of online courses is being able to adequately and with finesse not just execute an online course, but also understanding how to carefully blend in experiences, the aspects of experiential education, which is where we've created what we call fusion programs under the guise, so to speak, of Grassroots Business Consulting, Grassroots Dog Business Consulting, which is really what we're going to be focusing on today. Because the idea of experiential education, it should be the cornerstone, the keystone of any good educational program in implementation. So, first of all, thank you to everybody that's joining us today. I know there's a decent group on here. By the way, for just joining us, if you've got questions as we're going through this or comments or any topics, anything like that, feel free to use the question box. Let us know a little bit about yourself if you want to, if you've got any areas that you want to delve into a little bit more, if you want me to slow down through anything. Go ahead and throw it out into the questions box, and Graves will, and I'll also try to keep my eye over there, but Graves will help with that. So what are we covering? We need to first of all talk about the fact that dog owners have changed. We're going to be delving into that a little bit. So taking a look at how have dog owners' needs changed over the last 10 years or so. Understanding where your customers are at, of course, is one of the key essentials here. We really need to get a better understanding as a global community of how dog owners are changing and things are kind of shifting and growing in that respect. We also need to be looking at what the addition of online courses are going to actually do for you in business, right? How is it going to actually help you? How is it going to actually help your dog owners, your clients, right? The end user. And Of course, a lot of you guys wrote into me as you signed up for this particular course or the mini course, this class today. A lot of you guys really were asking about what are the common pitfalls that a lot of people fall into, which is great information, I think, for you guys to have. Because I don't think, except for I think maybe 2 people in total that signed up for this actually have current online classes. So that's going to be a really good piece of information. All of that information is going to be good for all of you guys. I'm also going to go into depth on the 2 main types of course designs, the 2 main types of ways of tackling creating online courses. And last and certainly not least is really taking kind of a quick look at time management. Because as soon as you start to implement and integrate online courses into your business, how you're used to spending your time is going to shift, no doubt about it. So you need to be prepared for that as well if you're serious about implementing and creating an online course for your business. How you holding up over there, Graves? How's everybody doing?
What? Everybody's good, it looks like.
Awesome. It's funny, so everybody that's joining us, you don't know, but Graves and I just got off of a group meeting with our other clients. So we've literally been at this now. I'm like, we were just talking, Graves, like 10 minutes ago. This is awesome.
I know, it's weird. It's like I never talked to you, ever.
Ever. Never. Especially not on a daily basis.
Never.
All right. Before we get started, super quick, guys, I wanted to be really clear on what we're going to be covering and what aspects of business we're going to be hyper-focusing on and what we're not going to be focusing on. And in front of you right now, you're going to see a fairly simple graph. It's basically the entire system that is your business, right? It's like your business as a living, breathing thing almost. These are like the organs of its body, so to speak. And there's actually a cycle of importance. When you're first building a business, everything is sprouted through identity. It's kind of like the true north of your business, right? And what you do in terms of growth and development is you're constantly somewhere in this cycle of development. So you start with establishing really good identity, which is kind of like branding, personal branding, really developing out your niche, which is, who are you actually providing services for, who your ideal client is, figuring out how to market to them, how to bring those guys in, and then today what we're focusing on is what you're offering them. Once you've gone through all of those steps in your business and your potential client has gone through all of those things and gotten to you somehow, we need to now decipher, okay, this is what you're now going to be providing for them. And understanding and really honoring this whole system, I just want you guys to keep in mind that in order to make this work, these types of online programs, you can't forget about the rest of your business, right? So, and we're going to be covering this in a little bit more detail here in a bit, but just keep this kind of image in the back of your mind. We are hyper-focusing on one area, and there's still many other areas of your business that do ultimately affect the program aspect itself. Not bad, huh, Graves? Kidding.
I love it.
I love it. Yeah, me too. I'm all about systems.
The holistic wheel of business.
Yeah, with the crazy looking like red thing. It was just like a big bullseye on programs for today. But yeah, there's a whole bunch of other connecting pieces. All right, so dog owners are changing. How many of you guys have been in business for, more than a couple of years? Anybody that's beyond their, I'd say, 5-year mark, are noticing that things are starting to get a little bit more complex, right? And not only are dog owners starting to really shift their needs, it's starting to really change the industry itself, right? People are responding differently to the way that we used to do things. And we need to really get a much, much better understanding of what those things look like. The further we fall behind in really understanding how much more complex dog owners' lives are with their dogs, the further we get away from that, the more what we're offering to them just no longer makes sense, right? So some of the things that I've kind of highlighted, and this is certainly not, an exclusive list where these are the only things affecting dog owners these days, but one of the top ones is, just the reason why people get dogs is changing, right? 20 years ago, you wouldn't have seen a couple in their late 20s, early 30s choosing to get a dog and raise it to see, how things are going to go before they decide to have kids, as an example, right? You didn't see 30 years ago, single women flocking to get 5 dogs if their kids have moved out of the house, right? There's really different emotional necessities and reasons for why people are wanting relationships with dogs, and it's certainly something that needs to be given some TLC. You need to understand, why are your clients getting their dogs in the first place. The income in which people spend on their pets is astronomical. Even in 2008, when we had that big crash, the amount of money people spent on pets just kept growing and growing and growing, while all these other industries were slowing down and really took a big hit. Speaking of the economy, the time that dog owners have is increasingly more limited, right? So people are needing more out of their dogs and actually have less time. And, doing things like, well, you shouldn't get a dog is just not cutting the mustard anymore. People are still going to get dogs. We need to be designing more creative ways of problem solving for these guys. How people go about getting the dog, at what age people are getting dogs, has shifted, right? Many, many, many more people are adopting that dog that's been rehomed 6 times before it's hit 18 months. Of course, their needs with that dog, especially with the busy schedule, is going to be far more complex. And while all of these things are happening that make them ultimately feel a little bit more disconnected, they're actually craving more involvement, right? Which means that we need to get really creative in how we provide that for people. And, again, to top it all off, it's creating a little bit more of a dependency need for a lot of these owners as well. For anybody that's been in the industry for 3, 5, 10, 15, 20 years, that's another thing that we've all noticed, is that, there's more dog owners that are needing more of your check-ins and to know that the dogs are okay and want to see the cute fluffy pictures and all that stuff. And where we didn't have to do that as dog professionals 10 years ago, there's now a much larger emphasis on that being an expectation, and it takes a lot more of our energy and time as well. So all of these things mean, every single one of these points, like I said, there's many more, they all directly affect our businesses. They directly affect your businesses. Any questions so far? Nope, not so far. Okay, cool.
Nope.
Just want to make sure I'm not like cruising through it too quickly. All right. And look, the internet has exploded. It has completely changed the way that dog, business owners can run their businesses. I've had numerous conversations with people that are, 10 plus years in, and we make jokes about, how we used to call up your Yellow Page advertising person, and you make your appointment to go get coffee with them, and you'd sit down and talk about, what words are going to be in the next year's Yellow Pages. That used to be your marketing time, basically, as a professional dog trainer. Not to mention the fact that there were probably 1/40th of the amount of quote-unquote dog professionals, dog trainers out there than there is today. So because of the fact that the internet has exploded, it's not only changed the way that we do businesses, but it's now changed the way that we actually educate clients, not just the way that we're finding clients. Right? First, it affected our marketing in a big way. Now it's directly affecting our ability to educate these guys. Right? Good, bad, and ugly. So we need to be able to understand how that's happening and how that can actually benefit our businesses if we go about it in a smart way. First of all, the addition of the right kinds of online courses can absolutely give you a scalable model, which we're going to get into what some of the financials look like. Look, in general, online courses as an industry has grown to a $107 billion industry, right? That's a tremendous growth industry that you guys as business owners have the ability of actually tapping into. Because of the fact that it makes sense for where a lot of your owners are at, and that it can help solve a lot of those newer issues that dog owners are now facing, this becomes a really important point, right? Not only can it solve a lot of the issues that your dog owners have in terms of, time constraints, etc., but it's just a ginormous industry. The more you can tap into that kind of stuff, the better off you're going to be. Of course, it's obvious at this point, it's going to increase your revenue if you do it the right way. It also frees up your time so that you can spend more time in your business doing things that are important, being a business owner, working as opposed to working in the business all the time you're working on the business. It also provides you with different types of outlets of creativity that you otherwise wouldn't have access to. Without those increased resources, without the scalability, without the ability of really understanding how you can leverage your time and your energy and your income in different ways, if you didn't have access to those new things, you wouldn't be able to open up a really wide variety of new creative outlets that we don't even know what they look like for you yet, right? Because we're not quite there. But all kinds of other things are going to start to become available to you as an end result. This also gives you, at least for right now in the industry where everybody's currently at, this also gives you a high leverageability point to place you above your local competition. And I want you guys to think about that for a second. Most of you have woken up or will wake up to an incredibly saturated market. And if it hasn't happened in your area yet, it's just a matter of time, including increasingly amount of rural areas. This is also starting to happen. So this is one of the at least current ways of essentially ensuring you're going to be able to step out and away from the rest of the crowd. This could be very, very different story, however, in the next 5 to 10 years as things continue morphing and growing. And yeah, that's about it. Any extra tidbits that come to mind that you wanted to throw in there, Gravesies?
Yeah, I'll add just a little snippet, and then there is a question from Victoria that we'll address as well. In terms of what Maggie is saying and where this is at, which you're teasing so well. It's perfect. I want to make sure I'm not stepping on anything that you're about to say, but this model that Maggie is about to teach you is so effective in so many different ways, not only in, like she said, helping you stand out from the crowd, but also differentiating yourself from a benefit standpoint and being way more scalable, which you said at the very beginning. And the thing is this is not something you get to sleep on anymore, right? The fact that Maggie, you've been talking about this for a long time.
A long time, 8 years. 8 years. Yeah.
So that's 8 years that people have been sleeping on this. So if you're gonna wait, if you're on this webinar and you're gonna wait another 8 years or even another 12 months or 8 months before you start to implement this stuff, you're really missing out, because this is a thing that Maggie has been at the forefront of for a long time.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Oh,
go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, I was just gonna say, and Victoria's secret. Fucking A. Victoria's question: are there any major global changes, net neutrality, for example, that will affect this portion of the industry?
That was the most evil cackle ever that just came out of me. Look, old school ways that a lot of dog trainers are still thinking that it's appropriate to market yourself. I won't name any specifics right now, but the number one way that most people think that they're supposed to be doing it in dog training businesses are probably going to be affected. The irony is the way that I teach, nobody else is teaching. It's also the one of the few that are not ultimately going to be affected, because things like Facebook is big enough, and we teach a lot of high-end Facebook advertising and lead generation. So for my clients, no. For most other people, yeah, high probability. Very high probability. But this is why I had to step away from dog training, guys, because I had to focus on this business stuff full time to keep ahead of it. And as a matter of fact, just to kind of add to this with what Graves was saying, I'm teaching you guys a really advanced version for a reason. Like if you were to go do your own research into growth of online courses, and we're actually going to get into this in more detail, the original way in which people were doing them is actually slowed down and starting to do a bit of a reverse. However, there's more effective advanced versions that people have grown into that are working really well, right? And so that's the form I'm going to be teaching you guys today. For those that have put out online courses in the dog training industry so far are what are considered the old versions, right? So yeah, the whole net neutrality thing can definitely negatively impact some people. Fortunately, the way that we're setting it up doesn't affect it. It won't affect my clients, and if anything switches, we'll be on the forefront of that stuff for sure. Sorry, that was a really that was a really big answer to that, but yeah, there we go. Okay.
I thought it was awesome.
The evil cackle.
Yeah, that was incredible. Regina shared something very vulnerable. Thank you, Regina, for being so open. She says that she's been sitting on her online course for 4 years, frowny face, right? And that's not uncommon. You have this passion and this desire and this thing that you want to do, and then you get really busy with everything else, or you get really overwhelmed with should I do this or this or this, or what's the right way, and you start spinning so many plates that
Yeah.
you lose sight for what it is you actually want to do. So
Yeah.
stay tuned.
And we'll
Maggie's
get
going to
there.
cover this.
Yeah, we will get there for sure because there are some really common ways where people get stuck in a cycle without actually moving their online courses forward. So we'll get it. We'll get it. There's a ton of stuff in here, guys. So moving into some really common top misconceptions, and there's more, but I didn't want to overwhelm you guys because there's so much to cover. Number one, and a lot of you guys wrote into me when you first signed up, you're like, I'm really interested in learning a way to generate passive income. And number one misconception that we got to get out of the way right now, there is absolutely nothing passive about it. And when somebody recommends, oh, you should do online courses, it's great passive income, they only say that because they haven't done it effectively. They haven't done it. They just haven't been there, right? There's nothing passive about it. So it is work. You do have to look at the full model of your business. Remember, one of the first slides I showed you was that, honoring the whole system of your business, right? This isn't like a get out of jail free card for those of you guys that are in business. So just be clear on that, and we'll see why here in a little bit. The other thing is online programs don't market themselves. Yeah, you need to already have what's dude, it's
What?
amazing. People are like, oh, that's gonna get people to find me. And it's like, no, separate deal. Actually,
You
hold
mean it's,
on. I'm gonna give you guys vertigo. Here.
oh,
Remember, we're focused on programs. Marketing comes before programs. Programs are not gonna solve a marketing issue. If you have issues with marketing, that needs to be addressed first. Yeah. So there's nothing passive about it. They're not going to, your online courses are not going to market themselves. That needs to be looked at differently. And creating a new piece to your business, right? Just because you add in online courses into your business model means that you're going to also need to change your sales process before you want to get started. And that's if you want to profit over the time and the energy you're putting in. Right. You can build, I mean, I love you, Regina, but I'm going to use you as a quick example, my dear. It's kind of like Regina. She started her course 4 years ago. Totally different than profiting off of a course. Yeah? I love you. I would give you big hugs right now, Regina. I don't know you in person, but I would still hug you.
well, even Joe, right? Joe shares, and again, thank you, Joe, for sharing. Pricing my online courses right has always been a big issue for me, right? Like,
Yeah,
you're not alone.
you're
And
not alone
there's
at all.
it's way easier to do wrong than it is to do right. In fact, 99% of the people you see out there are doing it wrong.
Yeah.
And that's why people sell it as passive income. It's BS. It's a business. Richard Branson isn't just sitting around not working on his businesses. You
Yeah, and
know?
when he's sitting around working on other people's businesses. Sorry, I couldn't help it.
That was awesome. Nailed it.
Because it's true. Because it's true. I swear I'm going to meet Branson one of these days. I got to get the hookup from Leland Gulliver.
We'll get there.
We'll get there. All right. All right. So, hold on. I'm gonna make sure everybody's. Lucinda says, "I'm fearful of being able to sell the online content without the personal factor." Can you extrapolate on that, my dear?
I
Don't
can
come
tell what
back.
she's saying.
Give it to me, Graves.
If it's an online course and I'm not there in person, I'm afraid I won't be able to sell it.
Oh. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, you and everybody that I coach around this at first. We'll get there. This is why I said it changes. Yeah, it changes your sales process. Before you even get started, you have to be aware of what that process is, and you have to have the right process plugged in to get the results that you want. And I've got this cute little slide. If you guys are
That's
still with
awesome.
me,
That's amazing.
this is me being perfectly honest because I teach this for a living. I teach my client. Almost all of my clients have online courses now. It's like a must. You have to go through this process, and I teach all of this stuff in great detail. Everybody, Graves, am I wrong? Does everybody at some points wants to shoot their computer, right?
Oh, absolutely.
And this is
If they're not deadly afraid of even going near the computer to begin with.
yeah, and this is why I said this is not passive income. Right? When this is how ultimately there's going to be moments where you're going to feel like that this is not passive. So if you're still with us and you want to continue on into the nuts and bolts, we're about to go there. And it's going to get a little easier, I promise. I promise.
Should we? I'll ask a question, and you can decide if we want to answer now. Panos has been very patient, and he's interacting well. He's in Sydney, and he's been at it for 6 to 7 years. And he asks a really good question. Is it better to start with one program, for example, puppy training, or wait to get a whole setup like obedience, behavior issues, trick training, and put it all out there at once?
Good question. Thank you for asking that. And high fives to being from Sydney. We were just there a month ago. We were just in Sydney.
We didn't stay that long. We went on to Coolangatta, but yeah, beautiful flying in and out of there.
Awesome question, Panos, and I think that a lot of people share similar questions. We are going to be covering some stuff that I think are going to clear that up, and then we'll circle back around if not everything was answered. All right, you guys ready? We're about to dig deep. Okay, so there's two types of courses, guys. This is really important. This is the kind of stuff nobody's going to be teaching. This is it. Like, we're it. You need to really listen up through this stuff because you're not going to find this anywhere else. There's two main types of programs or course types, online courses. The first one is the passive, non-facilitated. And we'll get into what the different ones look like specifically. And basically, these are cheap as fuck. Let's get honest. They provide little value. And this is what you're used to seeing when you see online courses. This is why people think that it's passive, because it's got the price tag of a passive income model, but it's really not. And we'll dig into that in a second. And the second type, this is precisely what we teach. This is your higher end facilitated version. The courses individually are going to be more expensive, but the focus really is on establishing a deeper relationship with clients, being really clear on who you're taking on. And this is where we get into what we call fusion programs. These are the online courses that are mixed with really well thought out experiential pieces to create an entire program for you. Very, very powerful stuff. If anybody's been following our stuff for a while, like you'll see on occasion where I think the best sales day a client had was 50K, and it was just like, I think it was like 2.5 days or something. It's not uncommon for our clients to have, I say ours because Graves helps with my Leadership Guild folks all the time, but I mean, it's not uncommon to have people that are making $10,000, $20,000 worth of sales in a day because of the fusion programs that they've created. And when it comes to online courses, you really have to get clear on, do you want a catch-all, anybody and everybody, low-value, cheap course, or do you really want something that's going to be spectacular and designed really well and it's going to be very high-end for clients, right? And the reason why this is really a double-edged sword is there's two different ways to go about doing this, right? one way you're, trying to take a slice at helping people, it's not going to be as effective. The other way is going to go a little bit deeper. Again, what we teach is that second kind. It's the higher end facilitated stuff. And so here's the basis of what really is up with this idea of non-facilitated. These are the original courses, the stuff that most people are used to seeing. It's the ultimate passive program, right? Ultimate passivity is designed not to communicate directly with clients ever. This is really important to note. This is where you have all of the sales funnels, and I mean like funnel after funnel after funnel and landing pages that scroll on and on and on for days, right? With a bunch of text and a bunch of just stuff. And it's funny because, just a side note, I see certain coaches and people like that in the industry that talk against, being salesy and things like that. But what breeds cheesy, salesy stuff really is these overly drawn out, super passive program styles, right? Because they're indirect. They're not really designed to create deep thought and deep action in your clients. It's designed to get a whole bunch of people at a tiny price point, and you give absolutely zero shits about their actual results. Right? It's a really big distinguishment between non-facilitated and the higher-end facilitated courses. And that really is the game, and it is a game, is to reach as many people, hoping that some of them will give you a little bit of money. Right?
Is it okay if I give some stats on this?
Absolutely, because this is your specialty. This is going into your specialty area, which is why I wanted you to jump on here with everybody. So yes, please do.
Yeah, so I've been at the online marketing stuff since the early 2000s, and I've seen all of this, right? These style websites that you see.
Two multi-million-dollar ad agencies that was designed to bring people to things like this. So yes, you guys need to listen to Graves right now. I don't know. Please go.
So these websites, this style, let me put a sales page up and drive a bunch of traffic to it, they tend to convert at about 2% if you're lucky, 1 to 2%. So that means if you want to make, one sale, you have to drive 100 people there. And the idea is, well, if I just price it low enough, then people will buy it because they won't have to think about it, and so I'll drive a ton of traffic. And it's not cheap to drive traffic, right? Like there was an article the other day just even talking about Facebook, where Facebook organic reach is darn near zero if you're a business. They just updated their algorithm again. And to be fair and honest, Maggie and I haven't had to worry about organic Facebook reach for years. We just don't even pay attention to it because we don't have to, because we can drive as much traffic as we want, and our conversions 10% is low. So keep listening to what she has to say, because this is massive. It's not about the $47 thing that nobody, it's the you're at the checkout stand and it's the impulse buy. No, that kind of shit doesn't work. It does for 0.5% of the population that ever try it. Yeah. Because they test those funnels that you see, they test every single day. So sure, you don't have to interact with the teaching side of things, but you're interacting with how did the email funnel of doom, and how did my sales page to opt-in page to remarketing ad, how did that convert, and how can I get it to bump up 1%? All of these things. Your conversion on this is like 1 to 2% if you're lucky. So pay attention. Yeah, Maggie knows what she's talking about.
Yeah, and that's, again, if you're lucky, that's having like a professionally built funnel that is super fucking cheesy and salesy, in my opinion. Like this type of course, because I started researching and getting involved in this stuff 8 years ago. This was at the inception of when this stuff even first started. Like I'm crazy. I'm a psycho when it comes to this kind of stuff. I'm always up to date, always in front of the ball, right? Always in front of the curve. And the thing is it never felt right to me, right? It was like, okay, I feel like I'm losing a lot of value, and losing value for my clients was not something I was ever interested in compromising. So the last 8 years have literally been spent figuring out how can you use the positive benefits of what these courses are providing without losing all this stuff. And it turned out,
Mm.
and it took me years, but what it turned out to be is so much of the difference is actually in how you're marketing it, right? How you're marketing yourself, because that's the deal is you're not marketing your course. You should never be marketing your thing, right? Like I'm not going to get on a webinar and tell you guys all about what I do in my leadership guild because nobody gives a shit, right? You guys care about what's going to affect you right now. And so it's really important to understand what you're doing when it comes to marketing. And I mean, I've said it enough already, and I'm going to continue reminding you guys, having good, healthy online courses means giving your marketing and your sales process some serious TLC. And that's exactly what you leave out really in these non-facilitated courses is, you're not ever actually talking with people. You're not actually involved in helping them make better decisions for themselves, right? You're just passively hoping that they give you their credit card, which is way harder than you realize anyway. So yeah, so again, this is not what we teach, but this is the common stuff that you're gonna bump into if you're out there doing research on your own. Oh, look,
Hey,
my little dog's getting coffee. Yeah.
oh, look
I
at
love that little dog.
Oh, he's making sales. Look at him go. I like his
He
nails.
totally, yep. No, he's just talking to his internet server. He wouldn't get on the phone with sales. Why would he do that?
Oh,
Because
he's
it's a
scared of it.
non-facilitated course. He's scared of sales.
Oh, yeah. My
Okay.
website's down. I can't get my one. Hey, Bacon.
Bacon. Actually, there's a picture of Graves. So here's that second cell. This is that actual facilitated course. This is where you can actually breathe some serious depth and some serious life into your online courses. And the trick is being able to design them with the right kind of support, right? Both with you and as a community, for example, because it's all about having your passive education, which can be an online course, right? I teach people to build 8-week-long courses, and it's a very important piece of it, but it's just a piece. It's the online course in addition to an experiential education piece. For us, the example is we do really awesome high-end like retreats and events for our clients. And this was the last one we had in Sedona, Arizona. It was amazing. We all got together for 5 days and did all kinds of fun stuff. And everybody, instead of earning brownie points, everybody earns bacon points in our group. So we had a bacon party. And it really drives home the education and the more passive stuff that you're doing with your clients. And it's really impactful. It's so unbelievably valuable. And part of it is dedicating your focus to that quality, right? Rather than the quantity. Instead of like having something really cheap where you get a bazillion people, having this type of a facilitated course really adds to the quality of what you're providing. And I don't know about you guys, but for me, I'm all about quality, not quantity. I'd much rather have a small group of amazing clients and really go to the next level with them over and over and over again. Constantly be like, breaking our own records rather than just like sticking a bunch of people into some lame stuff. And this is where you're actually going to have online courses that creates that leverageable time and the leverageable income that so many of you guys are really wanting out of your businesses, right? And this is what's going to create the opportunities for you to actually focus on what's the most important thing in your life. And for some of you guys, that might be having the resources, whether it's time or money or lifestyle, to actually have really the kind of quality time with your friends and family back again, right? Sometimes you guys have lost that through being business owners. It might be getting your business up and going, right? Maybe you're struggling to do it full time. Whatever the case might be, these are the courses that are going to provide the most value, not just for your clients, but for you as well.
That's so important. Thank you.
Yeah, well, by a long shot. We see it over and over again. We see it over and over again. My clients now see it over and over again. There's actually a story I really badly want to share with everybody that just came up, like an hour ago with Stacy, one of my clients, that was just absolutely beautiful. And before we move on, actually, if you guys don't mind, I'll do a little story moment. Because Elizabeth actually wrote a comment in here a bit ago. She said she's not so much worried about selling. This was probably about 5 minutes ago. She's not worried about selling, but she's more worried about delivering what they paid for. right? And she feels like she's a bit of a technophobe, which you're not the only one. I've got, especially one of my clients I'm thinking of in particular, Miss
Mm-hmm. Yep.
is a horrible technophobe. She can do it like you can do it. But here's the cool thing, like a lot, and this is a breakdown that most people have. I've actually don't think I've had a single client yet that hasn't had a little bit of like I don't want to say a breakdown around this, but that's probably a strong enough word. That's cool. We'll say breakdown. Around the idea of delivering enough value. We just talked about this for an entire hour, as a matter of fact, all close to it with our students right before jumping on with you guys. And the interesting thing is when you're providing people exactly what they need and the way that they can utilize it, they're going to have far better results than you actually think are going to be available because you're so used to giving people just your time. And we'll get into this in a little bit more detail in a bit. But here's the lesson. Here's the story I wanted to share. We were literally talking about this topic about 45 minutes ago, where you start an online course. You're a little bit concerned if people are getting their value. Maybe they're a little quiet. It's harder to tell where they're at because you're not visually seeing them all the time. And one of my clients shared that really recently she was able to check in with one of her clients that's in her passive program, in her fusion program. And she hadn't done, for the first time, she would normally do a bunch of private lessons with her clients. And for the first time, she stopped doing that. Well, what she discovered is this family, even though they hadn't been active on some of the other avenues she had given them, they'd been quiet. It would have been easy to assume that they weren't getting any quote-unquote value out of it. What it turned out to be, what was going on is that family that was normally really busy, super disconnected, the dog's not getting any TLC from everybody, that family stops what they're doing as a whole every night and sits down as a family and goes through the lesson plans and videos as a family and works with their dog as a family. Right? How many people struggle to even sit down for dinner together? And all of this is happening as a result to an online course, right? They work as well as the students that are in them. All right. That's my little soapbox moment. Moving on.
Nice.
Such an important thing, though. I just thought that was such a great story. I mean, that just literally popped up. It's like, oh yeah, look at that. I mean, there's so much more value and benefit to that family for having that experience as a whole. Like, regardless of, okay, the dog learned how to sit, at that point, none of that even matters. The fact that it is bringing this unit together and actually getting them to be on the same page about something is amazing. It's amazing to me. Anyway, all right. So I wanted to kind of give you guys this, I wanted to go over this little pyramid with you super quick because it really has a lot to do with the idea of facilitating and running not just quote-unquote online programs, but having a good facilitated or fusion program model that you can start to provide for clients. And the idea here is really what you're doing is you're creating your program to encompass this top piece of it, this red area, this passive learning, right? Because this is the stuff that we tend to, as dog trainers, tend to spend most of our time on, right? The active learning piece, we're really not usually there, and what we need to do is we need to switch our models around. By the way, if anybody has any questions around me clarifying any points on this, or if you need me to slow down, feel free to slow me down, because this is kind of different stuff to be covering for a lot of you guys. So basically, another way of looking at it is the passive learning aspect. That's, they're going to remember 10% of what they read, for example. They're going to remember 20% of what they hear. They're going to remember 30% of what they see. So much of what's going on in this passive learning zone is what you're spending the bulk of your time doing in classes and private lessons. The irony is that it doesn't require you to be present. That's the crazy thing. And this is why I say, in a good fusion program, you have certain pieces that are passive, right? Like your online course, but you change the deliverable time to something that's more experiential. That's something that is more focused on active learning, right? Like a retreat or something like that. versus like an hour or private lesson or class is very ineffective. And so, you want to start shifting your focus on what you're used to teaching. A lot of what you're used to teaching, probably 80% of what you're used to teaching clients, needs to get designed and put into your online course. And this could be transitioned into multiple courses, but everybody needs to start with one, right? We just covered actually a whole program design and course design a course on courses in the Leadership Guild. And so, it's a really important piece. The active learning, again, is the stuff that we tend not to normally show up for that's actually important for you to start showing up for those. Does that make sense? So like when people are actually out there applying the stuff after they've studied, that's when it's good for you to get involved. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, cool. Does anybody have any questions about this?
There's not any questions about that exactly. There is a question that we'll ask later if you don't cover it.
Yep, no worries. And also, I'm big on, I'm constantly reminding students to take good notes, write things out, right? As they're doing things, document things like that. Because what you say, what you write down, what you're doing, that's the stuff you're going to remember. And so this is also important in terms of, structuring for your online courses. If you really want to give people good results, you have to understand how to set things up so that they get the maximum benefits from learning, which means getting them to, encouraging them to take notes. Shit, you know what? As a matter of fact, ironically, that's one thing I forgot to do. Normally, I'm constantly reminding at the very beginning of any group calls or webinars or anything like this I do. But I talked about myself instead. I had to do the intro, so I forgot. So you guys should have taken notes. I'm a little off my game. I'm so used to doing this for clients, so this is a little different this time.
No, I think
Thank
it's
you
good.
guys.
It's also a pretty large reason why a lot of kids get left behind in today's educational system in America is there's not that kinesthetic learning. They sit in a desk and they don't move, and they get in trouble if they fidget or move. It's that active learning of combining visual, auditory, and kinesthetic that really brings in the learning on a much deeper level for everybody, because those are the three main ways we learn, and some of us are combinations of that. And you reminded me of the saying, right? People are like, oh, I know that, but they don't do it. And it's like, that's the difference between passive learning and active learning. Passive learning, okay, you've heard it, but if you're not actually implementing it, you don't truly know it. You haven't really learned it, is what you hit for me with that. It was so good. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, and that's where, I think there's a lot more, coaching and work that needs to be done around breaking and dissecting this stuff down. Because, there's not a lot of people have done that with how we design educational courses in the dog training industry. As far as I'm aware, I'm the first really to go to this level. And what's interesting about this particular diagram for me is that, if you think about it, everybody needs to kind of start. Typically, it's easier to start kind of at the top of the pyramid, right, from where you're at. If you start to read about something and then you start to hear about it and you start to see it a little bit, maybe it's a little bit of a different combination, but that starts to give you insight into what you're starting to learn about. Things start to go deeper. You start to, visualize or see how it's supposed to work. This is all the things that we're producing, by the way. These are the steps that we move through in private lessons and in group classes, things like that, right? But that's the passive learning. We're so used to delivering the part that's supposed to be passive. This is why if you've been a dog trainer for 3, 4, 5, 10 years, you feel like a broken record. So let me throw that out at you guys. Who feels like a broken record when you're teaching? You're just like, oh, here I go. Same shit over again.
Type me in the question box if you feel that way. And while people respond, Panos had a question that kind of relates to this. He also had another question, and so did Joe, and we'll get to those later if they don't get covered. But his question was, does this mean people learn better through a course on the computer/phone rather than someone going to the home and teaching in person? And I think you're hitting it right on the head with what you're just saying, because everybody is saying me, 110%. Yeah.
And it takes, who just said it takes some of my passion away? Because they just,
Lucinda. Thank you, Lucinda.
you
Yeah.
just knocked it out of the park, girl. That knocks it out of the park. 'Cause that's exactly what happens over the long run. You guys wonder why we have the highest level of burnout of any other industry in the United States? This is part of the reason why, right?
You
Because the
start to sound, you start to feel like you sound like Ben Stein from Parker, or not Parker Lewis, but Ferris Bueller, right? Bueller.
how to manage your dog properly at home, because if you're a fucking idiot if you haven't figured out that if you don't put the trash can away, your 2-month-old dog's going to get into it. And what we need to do is yeah, it's just, it's horrible. It's horrible. And then you start to get angry and bitter at people even though they don't know any better. And it's a death spiral. Right?
Candace says that she doesn't feel that way because she's in the honeymooner phase. And I think everybody here can tell you that that unfortunately doesn't last forever.
Yeah. Oh my God. So yeah. No. Totally. Yeah. And if you're in the honeymoon phase, you don't realize that this is an issue until later on. I actually spoke with Candace earlier. Thank you for remembering that you're in the honeymoon phase, right? Because it's true. It's like you right now with where you're at are not going to connect with this. But look at all of these people that are like, yes, this is an issue for me now. Right? This is your 3, 4, 5 year mark, right? And the thing is we spend so much time hyper focusing on teaching in the wrong places that we never move beyond this passive learning zone into the really good meaty bits of active learning with clients, right? Because they've paid all their monies by that point, or we're so exhausted in our schedule we don't even know how to provide beyond that. But that's where all the good stuff is. And that's why fusion programs are so fucking awesome. I'm sorry. I get so jacked over this stuff because it's so much fun and it's so important. I'm obviously a big fan, guys. I'll calm down. Hold me back, Graves. Hold me back. Yeah, Chrissy, we all remember the honeymoon phase where we're like, oh, this is awesome. I'm my own boss. I get to do what I love all the time, until you're like, oh my God, I'm doing the same thing over and over again.
Answering the same question over and over via email from clients that message you in the middle of the night.
That shouldn't be messaging you because you're not charging them for it. Anyway, that's just me.
No, don't give that answer away.
Yeah. I'm like, oh, that's all the design. Okay. So really, again, before we move on from the slide, the deal is we need to recognize that all of you guys right now, unless you're actively working with me and designing your own fusion program, most of your time is spent in this red zone. It should not be spent. Your actionable time should not be spent in this red zone. This is why you need to develop online courses. This frees you up for doing all this other cool stuff in the active learning zone. That's where we need to be shifting our focus as educators in this field. And what that looks like is this. This is literally what this looks like. This is giving the really good, actionable, experiential stuff that's in that green zone back to clients once they've started doing all the work on their own. Of course, I love this picture. And there's Graves' face again. On the left-hand side here, this is a smaller group of my Leadership Guild students. These are both coaches, business coaches, and trainer coaches in the industry, as well as Graves. We all did a very special thing. We were at the Grand Canyon studying advanced marketing. So it was something really fun. We were able to go and do and apply some really good shit in a really fun area. This other picture up at the top right, this is my client Kristen's retreat. This is her taking her clients, these are all dog business owners as well, to do goat yoga. And I quote you, when I was like, dude, you decided to do goat yoga with your clients, that's amazing. I quote you, her response was, I figured if they could learn how to do yoga with goats running around, if they could nail that level of focus, they could do anything in their businesses. And let's
clarify something. She loves goats.
Oh yeah, she
got paid by her clients to hang out with goats for the afternoon, do yoga, and then deliver education to her clients. She got paid to go play with goats. Yes. How many of you would love to get paid to do what you love most? Put it in the chat box. Raise your hand if you'd love that, because that's what we're talking about, is getting that passion back that you lost when the honeymooner phase went away.
Exactly.
Sandra, raise your hand for a sec.
Yeah, well,
First, give a high five.
Thank you. I like the high five better. No, thank you for that reminder too, because you're right. And this is why, this is the whole business system. This is what it looks like. This isn't just completely invaluable experiences for clients, but this is also Kristen's identity. This is the core of who she is and what she is passionate about and what she wants to spend her time doing, and finding ways to create a tremendous amount of value. Like something like that, you literally will not find anybody else ever that's ever done that before for dog business. I've never even done that for my clients, right? So this is that level of, leverageability. This is where you start to get into the stuff that literally nobody else is doing because it's unique to you. It's cool stuff.
Absolutely. We've got a couple cool comments, right? Like Victoria says 5 years in as a professional trainer, 1.5 years in her own business. It's right. She's been in the industry for 5 years, so she's very knowledgeable, but she's only been in her business for 1.5 years. And she's already feeling like she's hit that glass ceiling of how do I help more people more effectively. And she says this course is totally the answer. Thank you.
Yeah.
And Stacy shares something too, right? She says, I started at PetSmart, and after 1 year, I was really feeling like a Stepford wife dog trainer. Absolutely.
Oh, yeah, that's a really good way of putting it. Yeah.
Oh, she says she left after 2.5 years because she had a passion for more. Now, 10 years later, she's starting to burn out. Yeah. Let's get that passion back, right?
Oh my God.
It's possible.
I told somebody this earlier. It was Candace, the one that's in the honeymoon phase. Literally in my call with her earlier. I think, Candace, I'm throwing you under the bus here. I hope you don't mind. But she made the comment to me. She's like, yeah, I just don't see how somebody could go there and not realize that they're struggling. And it's like, dude, it happens all the time. Because you get the rhythm of trying to keep up because you're underpriced and you're not marketing enough and you're worried about where your next client's coming, constantly. And you wake up 2, 4, 5, 10 years down the line and you're like, holy shit, what has happened? Why am I still struggling? I've devoted everything and I'm still stuck. And we're gonna get into the financials here. One of you guys, and I apologize because I don't remember, I think it might have been Liz. It might have been Liz. Had asked in the questionnaire about what's the ROI on this kind of thing, and we're gonna break the financial. Trust me, because it's insane. Let's be crazy, like who knows.
Well,
so look,
let's just look at the first ROI. You can get paid to do not dog training that you love, things that you love, like going to the Grand Canyon, working with goats, doing yoga, like. Oh my God, now get into the actual numbers ROI, because that just is mind-blowing.
Well, and the other stuff is so worth it, though, because, yeah, it's like, dude, we got to hang out at the Grand Canyon for a day with amazing people doing amazing work that are out there changing the industry. And it's awesome. And that's what people don't realize. That's the other piece of offering online courses. Right? This is where nobody else is doing this stuff. And it is so fulfilling from like a very deep fundamental level. This goes far beyond just income, right? It goes far beyond just the dollar signs, which I think is exactly what Graves was just trying to kind of hint on too. Yeah, it's awesome. So look, in order to get these kind of results, the reality about, beyond just the realities that we've covered is that it starts with time. Right? You have to commit the time to make this work. And I wanted to get really clear on what that's going to look like for you guys as individuals. And this is a really good time to drop it down. If you guys don't have notepads and a pencil or a pen with you, let's go ahead and do that. I want you guys to actually get involved here. Again, get your notepads out. Oops. Get your pencils so you can write this stuff down, because we're going to do a little bit of an exercise.
Yay!
Good-looking girls on the street. Depending on the street, yeah.
Definitely in the top 3.
I'm going to give everybody a chance to get pencils and pens.
Turn the lights on very bright. You need to have a pen. And a notepad, that's right, yeah. Serenading you while you get your office supplies. Reading.
All
Oh
right.
yeah. So Stacy brings up a really good point. Stacy, I also live in Los Angeles, and she says I spend more time traveling to clients than actually with my clients, and I hate it. And to anybody else listening, I will share. She's only driving 5 miles, but that takes 45 minutes to an hour, depending on if it's rush hour. 10 miles will take an hour and a half,
Yeah.
right?
Ew.
And so, Stacy, you're going to love this because it's absolutely for somebody like you as well.
And if you're breastfeeding, because that's exactly what Heidi just said. It doesn't matter. You could be busy with all kinds of stuff. It's funny because I know I just made a big joke about that, but when I was first starting out with distance programs, this wasn't even a matter of, super side note, guys, I should tell you this. When I first started designing fusion programs, the key wasn't about, breaking the financial glass ceiling. It was an accident. To be perfectly honest, it was completely by accident that I discovered the immense amount of financial power and backing that goes into this stuff. The real reason why I had to do it, like I mentioned earlier, is because I was up in the state of Alaska. I had to help people that were at tremendously large distances. They couldn't afford to fly me out every time that I wanted to do a private lesson, right? And this goes out to Heidi and anybody else that's got kids or like a lot of crazy distractions at home. I was at home breastfeeding my kid too. Like, I cannot tell you how many times I have literally sat at my computer with like one hand around my kid hanging off my chest while I'm like, working on something on my computer. So it can be done. I had to learn how to do this kind of stuff. So no matter what your situation is, like, this stuff is totally possible if you're smart about time management. All right, so
Yeah.
now,
So, real quick, Candace has a comment and Joe has a comment too, right? Joe says, and thanks Joe for sharing. And Joe, I do have your question. If it doesn't get covered, we'll come back to it. So don't worry about that as well. And thanks for sharing your comment. He says, I put everything into learning to train dogs for 10 years and not the business side, and it has kept me back. He says, focus people on your business side, like Maggie and Graves are saying. And he's right. Like, most people go in because we're taught that, right? We're taught the field of dreams model. Build it and they will come. Hang your shingle and they will buy from you. And that worked when it was small towns and there wasn't a lot of competition and people were shopping in the shops every day. You could hang your shingle up and people would see you and go in and stuff like that. And it hasn't been that world for decades, right? And Candace says, in terms of the traveling, right? And this is something that you have to take with a grain of salt. Pick a park and have them come to you, line them up back to back.
Ooh. Wait, who said that? I didn't say that.
No, God, no, you did not.
I was like, nope, that didn't come out of my mouth. Where's that coming from?
Candace did. And so you have to be there's a lot of reasons why Maggie and I will both tell you absolutely do not do that ever.
Nope.
And it's a common misconception. There's nothing you did wrong, Candace. It's what most people will teach you to do. And with what Maggie's teaching you today, you will never have to do that ever. And the beauty of that, not having to do that, is when you go to a public park. So not many people on here know this. When I was in my teens, my first business I started at 17 professionally was a professional magician. And I would be hired to do shows in public parks for private parties. You cannot stop anybody else from coming and partaking in what is going on, number one. And number two, it looks incredibly unprofessional, unfortunately, no matter how hard you try not to. And those are just two of the things, right? Mm-hmm. And why you do not ever want to work out of a public park like that. And granted, some people will say, well, that was magic, this is dog training, and this is different. It's not different at all. Trust me, no business is different when it comes to that sort of a thing. How you appear on the outside is everything.
Well, not to mention the fact that it's just a really bad model, right? It's a bad system, because you're over delivering that passive information aspect. There's a much better way about it and delivering a better quality. Yeah.
Yeah, and when I hear you say you're over delivering that passive stuff, what I hear you saying is You're taking the passive stuff that you can re-deliver in the way you're teaching on a one-to-many level, as opposed to doing what was mentioned here, which is you're still doing it one-on-one or
Right.
one-on-5. Even if you pulled a group class in a park, you're doing one-on-5. And again, it just looks really unprofessional compared to what Maggie's about to teach you.
Yeah, and just one more piece on that, because look, this is really important because you've got I call them the big three. They're my most hated things in this industry now, and that is group classes, private lessons, and board and trains. They're a bunch of old, outdated models, right? So, even the best case scenarios, okay, who gives a shit if you're doing it in a park? What if it rains? What if it's cold? What if people miss out? Are you going to do the follow-up? You know damn well people are going to ask, right? When you're doing it through online facilitation, it doesn't matter. People can access it any time. If they're sick, it doesn't matter. If you're sick, it doesn't matter. If it's raining, it doesn't matter, right?
Yeah.
Nothing is going to throw your schedule off. Literally nothing, which is awesome.
I was
Awesome.
just bringing up 2 points.
Sorry,
Which
I just
Regina,
got really excited.
no, it's totally cool. Regina was like, yeah, I used to do the public park thing, and I spent way too much time answering questions of non-paying bystanders because you feel bad. And if you don't answer them, now you look like a jerk to the people that did pay you, and everybody, and people are like, oh, I was just trying to get help. Oh, it's just a mess. So pay attention. Maggie is about to blow your mind.
Okay,
Bam.
all right, here we go. So I want you guys to write down how many hours are you working, and go ahead and share them. We don't have to, tell everybody about all everybody's hours, but I would like to see. Write down how many hours you're working, and then I want you to drop it in the chat box. How many hours are you working? Most of you guys
Currently.
is
And is
20
that, let's clarify, per week or per day?
per week. Sorry, per week.
Okay. Oh, God, excuse me. So you could hear that. Michelle says she's working a total of 45 a week, and she's with clients 20 of those 45 hours.
Okay.
Chrissy says not enough. Joe says 40 plus.
Okay. And then how many hours are you guys spending with clients out of all that?
So again, Michelle answered 20. Oh, she read the question on the slide. She's fucking smart. Stacy says 40. Michelle gets bacon points.
I was going to say Michelle got a bacon point.
Panos says lots. Michelle says, yes, I am.
Ooh.
So if you're not doing the math here, do the math because it's going to come in handy in a second. Like really do the math. If you don't want to answer it in the chat box, that's fine. And if you haven't found the chat or the question box, that's okay too. Marilyn says, currently I don't have clients. I'm working strictly on launching our business. Okay, pay attention. That's totally cool. Sandra says 50 plus. Candace says 50 plus. Susanna says 15 hours per week in person with clients, about 40 to 45 per week total, counting follow-up and board and train. Chrissy, probably about 15, then driving times, calls, emails, about 25 a week. Candace says 25. So a lot of people, oh my gosh, Victoria, thank you for sharing that. 70 per week, clients 25. And I've been there, right? I've been that 6 or 7 days, 10 hours a day.
Well, I'm going to, hold on, I'm
Sure.
going to actually single somebody out. Victoria, you need to contact me. She was going to go to one of my last retreats, and you had a catastrophe happen. You need to get some fucking help with that 70 hours of work week shit. We need to get you some helps with that, girlfriend. Okay, cool. All right. Like, ping me tonight, and I'll get back to you tomorrow. Okay. All right. So, interesting how the amount of time most of you guys are spending working every week, the amount of time you're spending with clients is pretty close to 100% for a lot of you guys, right? How much of that time that's left over are you spending worrying about shit?
And would you say worrying would be answering emails and listening to voicemails and figuring out how you're going to make this client happy?
Facebook, trying to figure out how to get more leads because you're not sure where the next round of clients are coming from and you've had a slow couple of weeks and you're starting to freak out. Yeah. Candace like, oh, that makes 24/7. Yeah, a lot of you guys. So look, First of all, I want you guys to write this down. I didn't add this in the thing here so you guys couldn't read it because I wanted to tell you and have you write this down. You guys are going to kill me. Are you ready? A healthy service-based business, which you guys all are in service-based businesses, period. A healthy service-based business is spending 20% of their work week in active delivery. 20% of their work week in active delivery. How many of you guys are working 40 hours and spending, 7.5 hours in total on clients?
While they're working on that, I think it's Brea is how it's pronounced. Brea Cara is the name that I see. If you can't hear us, well, she can't hear this either. Never mind. She needs to, I messaged her directly. Hopefully she sees it. I'm like, let me just talk to her. Oh, she can't hear us.
Oh, yeah, it says, yeah, interesting. She's having a hard time hearing us.
So can you explain, Regina says, can you explain that again, please, Maggie?
Yeah, we're going to get into that here in a second. So if you're, okay, so let's look at it this way. If you're spending 10 hours working, right, 2 hours of your 10 hours at work should be spent actively delivering with clients. That means you should be driving to and from a private lesson or in a private lesson or teaching a class, facilitating, your online course, whatever the case might be. That's active delivery time. That's delivering to your clients.
Total. Not to one client, total.
Right.
2 hours if you were working 10. So that's 8 hours if you're working 40.
Yeah. Look, and the crazy thing to me is that this is not for some ungodly reason. This is not common knowledge in the dog industry when it comes to business. Because I think, who was it earlier? Some cool, Joe. Was it Joe? Joe Kelly. I think it was Joe. Had mentioned, he's like, yeah, I've been in the industry for 10 years. I wish I would have spent a lot more time learning business. And the thing is like, Joe's not alone. That's literally everybody that's ever entered this industry. There's very few people that have actually taken it, upon themselves to really study business in terms of like how it affects dog training as an industry, as a business model, right? And so when I discovered that a few years ago, it blew my mind. I knew it because I'd already had to go through the pain of having to discover it on my own. But then learning that that's just your healthy average of doing business really was kind of shocking to me because there's so many people that don't know that, right? So, when we design our programs, we don't keep those things in mind, and we often, all of us have been at the point, and all of you guys are at the point where you're delivering way too much, and the fact that you can't keep up on the rest of your business, right, that's a direct indicator. And this is why I say this starts with time. Everyone has to start with really understanding where they're at, how many hours they're putting in, how much time they're spending in clients, and what an actual healthy range is, right? And so when you start to create and implement fusion programs, this means it's going to have a tremendous impact on how you're used to spending your time. This means that, if you include a fusion program, you should absolutely not be still supplementing with all of these private lessons or all of these classes. This is another one of those very common things I have to very carefully work with my clients through, right? Because they'll implement a fusion program but want to hold on for dear life to that idea of going in for those private lessons all the time, even though you're providing all of that in a different format, right? So it will change the way in which you manage your time. Now, understanding how much time you should or shouldn't be doing and all of that stuff, I want to dig into some numbers around how much time you're currently implementing with clients and how much money you're potentially leaving on the table compared to what you're, compared to the time that you're already spending active delivering to clients. Does that make sense? Are you guys ready for that? More math stuff?
Sexy numbers.
You like numbers way more than I do.
I studied engineering in college. I thought I was going to be an engineer. I didn't realize I was going to be an entrepreneur.
Yeah, you did. You were always an entrepreneur.
I know, but I was trying to make my mom. I was trying to make my mom happy.
Ah, Whap, whap, whap. I got to keep that fishtail to myself, away from Graves' face. All right, here we go. It's like,
Laugh.
what is your problem? All right, here we go. I wasn't sure exactly how to break this down because normally I do this on an individual basis for people. But this, I just wanted to start with some easy numbers, right? So on average, we know for a fact that Fusion programs free up 80% of deliverable time. So that means, let's just say, and this number is going to be different for everybody. So if you want to run your own numbers, please do, compared to what your average, so you need to figure out what your average client is worth, right? So we're just going to use these numbers for right now. So we know that 80% of your deliverable time is going to get freed up by the implementation of Fusion courses, online courses. So if your average client is worth, let's say, $1,500, and this is lowballing it for my clients. So if some of you guys are like, oh my God, that's a lot, we seriously need to talk. Let's say, so your average client cost is $1,500 and your average amount of deliverable time that you're used to right now is 10 hours per client that's worth $1,500. If we know that putting them into a Fusion program is going to save you 80% of that deliverable time, that means that the amount of time you're used to spending is actually worth 5 times more. So that $1,500 that you're used to spend or used to earning right now, you could be earning $7,500 with the same amount of time, right? And if we scale that into a year's worth of income at 1 sale per week, how many of you guys have made 1 sale per week? I'm pretty sure that we can all raise our hands to that. These are very easy numbers to work with. So if you made 1 sale to a client per week, right, and you applied these numbers, your yearly income is going to jump from $7,200, or I'm sorry, $72,000 to $360,000. From $72,000 to the same amount of time you're applying to deliverable time is worth $360,000. I'm just going to stop right there.
Damn. That's how much money you're leaving on the table not doing this.
Yep. Victoria says, is deliverable time including board and train? When it comes to Fusion programs, yeah.
Yep.
Yep. As a matter of fact, who was it? Who was it? It was one of my, it was, oh, I know who it was. I know who it was. I have so many like quick coaching sessions with clients last week or so. Yeah, one of my clients was like, hey, you know, I'm starting to get a little burned out on board. And, oh, I know exactly who this was. You're on here right now. Talking about your board and trains, it's like, okay, well, wait a minute. Like, you want to maintain this amount of board and trains. We did the math. This is how much deliverable time, right? Versus if she were to switch her focus more onto selling her middle end Fusion programs, for the amount of time that she would save adjusting where she's making sales, the amount of time she would get, or amount of money she would gain, was like tripling her income, right? And this is the thing for people, you can't do board and trains for your entire life. And right now, as we stand without Fusion programs, without the addition of higher end online courses, the highest revenue you can make as a dog trainer is board and trains. And with the addition of Fusion programs, all of a sudden this weird thing happened where this happened about 3 or 4 years ago. We realized that board and trains were no longer the biggest moneymaker. Having a physical facility is no longer the biggest moneymaker. This is. The stuff that I'm showing you guys today, this is. Right? So if a client gets on the phone, a client of mine, and has a really good sales day, and they have because a lot of them will have like a $2,500 course, right? And then their high level is like $10,000. If they sell 2 $10,000 courses and, you know, 2 or 3 of their lower level, you know, programs in the course of a couple days, you're looking at 30, 40, you know, 30, 35, $40,000. And it's really interesting because, like, you know, at some point, like, I had a really hard time posting that because I feel like people are like, oh, that's impossible, you know? And it's like, no, this is why. This is the literal reason why people are getting these kinds of financial results. The thing is we're not, this isn't about like, let's go make everybody $500,000, because you can see clearly on paper, like you can easily get there if you want to, right? A regular dog trainer in the middle of nowhere could make $500,000 on a dog training program. The thing is what do you really want? Like, what kind of things are the most meaningful to you, right? Do you want to invest in like some nonprofit stuff? Like what is the bigger picture for you? Because that's the point we've gotten to. Like Graves and I have been talking about this a lot. What's the point of making that level of money unless you know what you're going to do with it? So you have to know why you're doing this, and it can't just be, oh, I want to bring in some passive income, right? We come back to that. There's nothing passive about doing it this way. It's very meaningful, and you really need to be connected with like why you're doing it.
Can I share something there?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I think so many people want that quote unquote passive income idea. The only reason why, after doing this for years and years, all the different models, be it eBay and Amazon and marketing on the internet and doing information products and all of that, none of it is passive, by the way. All of it takes continual work day after day.
Yeah.
You're waking up and working on it. The only reason why people actually want passive is because they're so burned out working 50, 60, 70 hours a week after week, year after year. They're like, fuck, I need a vacation and I don't know how to see one. I need to go get some of their passive income. I need some of that. And there really isn't anything that's honest to God passive, because even investing, you're still watching, like day trading, right? Like you're kicking
God,
into day trading. You're still spending time on it every day.
Oh,
right?
yeah. Yeah, exactly. It's like I have my hour and a half to 2 hours every single day allocated because I've got to watch the stock market. Sure, I made $4,000 this last month, but it was not passive. I had to, do my homework. I had to know what I was doing. Nothing's passive.
And here's the deal from a business standpoint. We know, Maggie and I have been at this and worked in so many different industries. We know on average, the average business, your really good margins on the average business are 30%. So that means if you're making $100,000 in your business, your take home is really about $30,000 to $35,000 a year if you're lucky. That's with good margins. That's just what businesses do. And most businesses like restaurants and e-commerce stores and stuff like that make less. They make 15% margins, right? So if you really want to get to, okay, my take home is 100 or 150 because I want to get that summer home on the lake, or I want to send my kids to college, or my kids are 12 now and in the next couple of years are going to need braces, and then they're going to need a car, and then they're going to need a college education. This is the answer. This is how you're going to get it without having to work 60, 70, 80-hour weeks without taking vacations. This is how you're going to get the passion and the fire back. Right. Did I lose you, Maggie, or you're there?
Oops, there we go. I accidentally hit the mute button. I was going to say, ironically, Panos just left a comment. He says, I don't want to miss out, but I need to go waste my time training people to train their dogs. Panos, first of all, you're welcome to, if you've got to run, you got to run. There's never any time wasted teaching people how to train their dogs. The difference is you don't have to be present all the time. So just a reminder, go do the broken record thing, but let's definitely talk more about how we can get you to automate it so that you're spending more of your time with them doing the things that matter most to both you and for them. I know you're just kidding, but it was too perfect. I had to come back with a little snark. It was awesome. I love everybody down in Australia. Not to be too generalized, but
they're rad.
They really are rad.
And their food is better than ours, and
oh my god, it's so good.
Lots of other things.
Down in Melbourne. Oh god, the
Melbourne.
food. Melbourne. All right, so that's a quick look at the financials, guys. And the funny thing is, well, yeah, the average client that I had down on here was really kind of, in a way, lowballing it. Most of our clients, their higher end program I don't want to say what is probably a minimum of like 6,500 right now, just to just over 10 grand. And
Mm-hmm.
mind you, they're not like, service dog contracts. I mean, these are dog owners that are really in search of something deeper, and just nobody else is giving it to them right now except
Mm-hmm.
for folks that are doing these fusion programs. So just remember this. I mean, there's a tremendous amount of income that's being left on the table by everybody right now, and the opportunity to really go to deeper depth with people. So, kind of in closing, Panos, because we really are getting ready to close this up. In closing, here are kind of my last thoughts on the things that you guys can do to get a good start. And the first thing is really make a good informed decision to change your programs. And when you change them, you need to be mindful that this is really changing the whole way of what you're used to doing. This isn't like adding in an online course and then not changing the way that you teach everything else, right? If you do that, you're not going to find success here. It's just not going to work. You can try it, and that's totally cool, but it's not going to work. You'll be one of those folks that have been trying to do it for 4 years. Yeah, you have to be really careful. The next thing is, if you want to have a really good program that includes online coursework, my number one honest to God suggestion after deciding that you're going to do it is you need to become a student first, right? Especially understanding the dynamics of experiential education. Experiential education, in its very definition, means that you must experience something in order to teach it. If you have not yet experienced a fusion course or a high level online course that's facilitated, get yourself involved in one, right? And then once you do that, you're going to be in a much, much, much better position. Like all of the folks, and there's a few on here that have been through my basic evolution course, right? That's the exciting thing. Like you guys that have been through the evolution course, which is just my basic 8-week, means that you've learned all of the things you need to prep yourself to start now on building your fusion programs, right? And so that means you're at the stage where you can actually get started, which the next step is learning how to pre-sell your courses. Look, guys, I had a woman 2 years ago, one of my first clients, as a matter of fact, that I really focused a lot of energy and time on helping her to develop her own online courses. And when she first came to me, I don't even think I've ever told Grace about this person. When she first came to me, she had invested. Are you guys sitting down? This is awesome. This is not awesome. This is a really good learning tool or teaching tool, but it was not awesome for her. She had invested $12,000 into a quote-unquote online course that had made her zero. She had zero revenue. It was dead in the water. By the time, she even contacted me and I got to take a look at it, it was already outdated. Yeah. It was because she didn't pre-sell. There is an art to finding clients. Again, your marketing has to be good. Your lead generation needs to be in place. Once that's there, you start to pre-sell, you come up with a date, and then at that point, that's when you decide on your specifics. That's when you figure out where you're beginning, what the first things you're going to teach, how you're going to organize it, where you're going to host it. All of those things, and I think a lot of you guys thought you had questions around the specifics, right? What do you do once you've got those courses sold, you're ready to go? That's the very last thing. What website do you go to upload your photos? How do you do it? Do you use a Facebook group? All of those things, that's the very last step, right? It might feel like the most important, but everything else that we've covered is really absolute baseline of importance, right? Only after you've been a student, you pre-sell courses, so you're not losing any money, you're making money right out of the gate. Just like Graves mentioned earlier, how would it feel to actually be able to go do cool stuff and get paid at the same time? How would it feel to get paid to build your first course? How would it feel to have an extra $5,000 in your pocket to start building your first course, right?
Yeah.
Way less full.
So as I was shifting from agency work, right, to doing more of my consulting side of things, because I'd always wanted to do that. I'd love teaching, but I consulted I did done for you agency work for years, and I was paid $32,000 to build my first course, right? I didn't build it and they came. I
Yep.
sold it first.
Yep.
you
Yeah,
know?
I made $76,000 off of building my first course, and I made it before I started building it.
Yep.
Yeah. And that's the thing is like that was I hold on a second. Let me back up. That was the first course where I got really clear on this stuff several years ago, and I was like, okay, this is the way to do it. That's when I made 76 grand. I've made a little bit of money. I've done all this stuff that you guys have probably looked at and that you've seen other people do. I've been there, I've done that. It's just that it doesn't work. Like I said, it's that difference between ultra passivity, right? Non-facilitated, lots of people that really don't need your help and not a lot of value in there anyway. That's that kind of stuff. And then once I figured out this piece, that's the irony is when you do it the right way for how people learn and what's going to provide the most value, the irony is that that's what ended up unlocking the financial resources. As a secondary, like, oh shit, look at this, as a result of doing what was honest to God best for the dog owners themselves. And I really I'd like to close, so we're really kind of rolling up here. I want to kind of close with that reminder. This is not something I set out 8 years ago to develop to make all the money and to help everybody else make all the money because the industry was getting increasingly more and more difficult, right? That never crossed my mind until about 4 years ago where I was like, oh my God, this not seriously helps my clients, but this is going to be amazing for all the people that I work with in consulting and I coach with their businesses. So, it's just, I love the fact that it's really something that honestly comes from, doing the right thing for your clients. And yeah, I don't often get enough time to just like sit in that and go, God, that's so fucking awesome. I'm so busy teaching all the time. So,
We've got a couple
um,
questions left over.
absolutely. I was going to say we'll wrap it up, but like anybody that's got any remaining questions, we'll spend as much time as we need covering all that before we completely close out here.
So let's start with a comment, not really a question, from Regina, right, which she's not alone. She says, I have such a hard time trying to figure out what I would put into a program worth 10K. My answer is definitely email Maggie at grassrootsdog.com because she can help you with that for sure, for sure. And then if you have any feedback you want to actually, because I think everybody kind of comes to us wondering that, right? Like, what the fuck would I do that for? How would I do that? Would you think you would do goat yoga? Because I can guarantee you that client of Maggie's didn't think that at first.
No, not at all. And Kristen's story is really amazing. The one that did the goat yoga with her clients. That's the thing is, when I'm first starting out with clients, and I just brought you guys back to this slide. Hopefully, can you guys see that?
No, it's just showing the.
Hold on. There we go. How about now, guys? The whole system?
Yep.
Yeah, okay, cool. That's why I mentioned this way earlier on, because I knew this would come up. And this should be in the back of everybody's heads. It's like, oh, well, what exactly do I do? What exactly do I teach? And this goes all the way back, if we back chain from programs through marketing, back into niche and identity, right? Identity and niche, this is where we need to do some work to get really clear on who is your ideal client? What kind of stuff is, are they being consumed by? What do they need? What do they crave? What do they desire? Right? How are we going to get them there? What is it that that's going to determine the stepping stones unique to you and your clients that you're going to need to lay forward for them. And this is a little bit of an individualistic road, an experience for everybody. Everybody should be a little bit different. This is actually exactly why I have not, I could have produced like a standardized course that I could have just been selling to everybody, just like, hey, just use this for your clients and then, put a package together like this and it's just done. But it's not good enough, right? It needs to be built for you and for your ideal client, your identity, your niche, right?
Otherwise, you're going to burn out again. It doesn't, you have to, it's got to be something you're passionate, you have a lot of, and Lucinda asked that, right? Can you give a specific example of how I would incorporate the fusion model, like an overview of how a specific skill or set of skills would be constructed? And the answer is, go email Maggie, right? Get on a call with Maggie. She can help you with this. It's not one of those things that it's not a one size fits all. Like I wouldn't want to do goat yoga,
No.
right? For me, it's like I'd rather be on a mountain, I'd rather be up at Whistler snowboarding and doing something like that as part of my experiential learning.
Yeah.
Or I'd rather be, because I live here in LA, I'd rather be at the Bel Air or, and then take a field trip down to Melrose and go into the high end places and make lessons out of that stuff. It's like, it's much more than can you give me one example?
Yeah.
Email Maggie at grassrootsdog.com because that's the easiest way to get a really specific and all of you can do that if you want help with that, and get on the phone with her for sure.
Yeah, thank you, Graves. I appreciate that, because honestly, part of it is depending on if you're a daycare, let's say, because there's different ways of doing slight tweaks to the program design, whether you're a daycare, maybe you're a luxury dog walker and you're looking to integrate more client interactions without, again, burning yourself out, something that's really going to like wow and zow people. There's different ways of actually integrating this type of stuff into your business, regardless if you're a dog trainer or a walker or a daycare provider or somebody that just does boarding. Like this kind of stuff can be plugged in to any style of dog business out there. It's predominantly the most I don't want to say effective because it's effective for everybody, but a lot of dog trainers are finding, if you're actively teaching people things, this is gonna like really be effective for you. But it really is an individual process. So, and like Graves said, if anybody's interested, part of the process that I go through everybody with anyway, as I'm pre-screening for people that are potential good fits for our programs, anywhere from the 8-month to a day long to a whole year, is sitting down and working with you one-on-one to figure out what your identity, what your niche is, what your marketing is, what your programs are, how you do sales, and then redesigning those things, right? So if you're interested in looking at this on more of an individual level, you're definitely welcome to shoot me an email. And I'll do my best to get back to you, within a reasonable amount of time. It usually takes me a day or so.
There's a couple comments and some questions. While I read these out, go ahead and throw it back on that last slide again with your email, just so people have it. Heidi says, thanks for a great webinar. Dawn says she had to go. She loves us, and it was a huge impact on her. Elizabeth says, thank you, Maggie and Graves. Regina, we already hit that. So now it's Panos and Joe. And Panos is back. Awesome.
Hey, dude.
And there's some other comments as well. One of the things that Panos says is membership versus paying for a specific course. So do I do a membership site? So Panos has obviously studied a bunch of different things. That's super cool. Do I do a membership site, or do I just do an individual course? Which one of those? What are the pros? What are the cons? What are our thoughts?
Yeah. So remember, guys, when I was talking about the difference, there's like basically two versions of having shit online, right? The first one's passive, lots of numbers, lots of, little amount of engagement with you directly with people, etc. And then you've got your facilitated. Those subscription-based things and like membership-based sites, that's all in the same category. That first lower quality stuff. Like those types of membership sites will tend to have, and I've got an old school, really bad one. I think it's grassrootsdog.com. You guys can go look. Way out of date. Still the same deal. The problem is it's like so much. It's so content heavy, and it's really cheap. It's like $27 a month or something like that, or like $99, right? That's what Graves was talking about, where you have to do like massive amounts of marketing to maybe get like 1 or 2% of people to opt into something that costs like $20, right?
And the attrition rate.
Yeah.
For a membership site like that, even if it's only $27, your attrition rate, meaning the rate at which people are going to leave that thing, even if they sign a 12-month contract, is going to be, within the first 3 to 4 months, you're going to lose 33% of your people on a membership site. So that means after 9 months,
I'm so excited. Go ahead. I keep interrupting you.
After
Go.
9 months, you basically have 0 people left, right?
Yeah.
Which means it's not passive. You always have to be marketing and you always have to be doing sales just to try to get a $27 a month sale, right? Which how
Yes.
many of those are going to get you the 10 hours at $7,500 for 10 hours, right? Like, because here's the deal. With a membership site, how many times do you think people email you, oh, I forgot my password, what's my password? How do I log in? I can't get the video to play. It won't load in my browser, right? I've done all that shit.
Yeah.
It's like, ugh.
Yeah, they're forgetting one thing. I'm like chomping at the bit. You guys don't understand because like Graves is seriously a magical unicorn. He's amazing. He's, one of the top people doing what he's doing in the field, and he's, connected to amazing people as well. And one of the things I've learned from Graves, and I've learned the hard way on my own, but I didn't really understand how important it was until I met Graves. Here's the thing, those super passive models and the subscription-based models and all that, it also takes you way more time to start making money. We're talking like a year, 18 months, 2 years of including a tremendous amount of time that goes into it. Versus the stuff that we're teaching you guys, most of you can launch within, if you just had the information and knew exactly what you were doing and your own old ideas and stuff didn't get in the way, because we're always our biggest, obstacles, like all of us are. If we didn't get into our own ways, all of you guys could be starting your own fusion programs within a week, right? You guys could be making money off of it within a week or two versus months down the road with the more passive stuff. It sounds alluring, but it's really not. It's really not. And I actually think this is a big reason why, the traditional kind of quote unquote business consultants in the dog industry are not teaching online programs, right? Because that's the only way that it's known how to do, and it doesn't, you can't make people money doing it,
Right.
right? Like I can't teach you guys stuff that doesn't actually make money. And so, that's why everybody else is teaching like SEO and stuff. And people are finally starting to catch up to Facebook advertising, which is good. I'm glad that I'm not the only one person or, only person teaching it anymore. But yeah, it takes so much time, Graves.
Yeah. Really good point. Really good point.
You know
So much
that.
time to get even close to profitable. Um,
All right.
yeah.
Any
Joe
questions?
says, yep.
Oh yeah.
Joe says, is it better to have a set length of a course or a growing monthly course that develops over time depending on client needs?
Oh, wait. Hold on. Read that one more time. I got a little
Yep.
distracted there for a second.
Is it better to
Sorry.
have a set length of a course or a growing monthly course that develops over time depending on client needs?
Gotcha. Okay, cool. Yeah, the way that we teach it, Dawn knows this. Dawn's in our leadership guild. The way that we actually tackle that issue is creating different program types, right? So just to give you guys a super quick lowdown, you should, and this is just across the board, you should be designing your program so you have 3 programs, right? Not a bunch of upsells and bells and whistles and shit. It should boil down into 3 different offers. And the easiest way of tackling that is to produce different things you get to put in each offer, right? So you've got 3 different offers or 3 different programs. And so your higher level ones, you can build progressively, you can be a little bit more flexible, you can add a little bit more bells and whistles, and you don't have to produce the whole thing before you sell it. You just start. And versus you can just do a single course.
What I see is possibly something different, which is actually it can get kind of messy, right? Which is the growing monthly course that develops over time depending on client needs. That's something that has like no beginning, no middle, no end really. And if you grow, it's basically it's the membership site model is really what that is if you were to really look at it. And what ends up happening is, cool, you have all of this information that you're putting together over time, and that's good. Problem is if you drop a new person into the beginning of that, they have no structure, no idea where to start. They get incredibly overwhelmed, and when people are confused, they shut down and do nothing. So much better to do what Maggie just said with the 3 courses and really have defined limits on them with a beginning, a middle, and an end, and a goal for each one and all of that, and a high, a middle, and a low level and all of that. Joe has one more question.
Super quick. Speaking of, for those of you guys that, because there's actually a few people on here that have gone through the evolution course, those of you guys that have the program outline breakdown there, so I have a worksheet in there to help people actually really clearly define their programs and their offerings, what's included, and how to price it out. It's a very easy model. When it comes to fusion programs, because there's a step 1 to that I have in the evolution course, and once you've done that, the next step in fusion programs is the exact same model, basically, that we use to design 3 different programs. We just add in these passive elements into it. So for a lot of you guys that have been through the evolution course, this is going to be pretty easy for you to catch on to. It's just a little bit different.
Nice. Thank you for that clarifier.
Yeah, I knew that
Joe,
some people would have been to wonder.
Joe says, I'm writing a book and then making a more in-depth online course off of this. I'm assuming this means the book. And then he says, is this a good idea? So he is asking us for feedback.
Okay. So really good effort. I want to start with. That's awesome that you're like, hey, I'm really trying to do something here, right? And writing a book is always exciting. Here's what I've learned from my mentor, Leela, and for those of you guys that don't know about Leela, Graves also has works with Leela as well. She is one of the top social media marketing experts in the world. She's really very incredible. She's helped Frank Kern with his stuff. She's done a lot of really cool stuff. And what she talks about when it comes to writing books is that's a really good thing to do once you're already positioned in your industry. However, this idea of, and I've been there, I've seen people go through this multiple times, so it was really good to learn why this happens with Leela's guidance. But when you're not pre-positioned, and if you're trying to write a book to gain positioning or to gain revenue or to create something else off the back end, it's near to impossible these days. And it was already hard enough years ago. But these days, I mean, it's almost like it's become too easy, and it's very easy for it to kind of get lost in the, in the hustle, unless you're already pre-positioned.
Do you want to know the history behind that? I don't think Leela's ever talked to us about the history, but I know because I studied the guy that came up with the model.
Yeah, go for it.
It's wild. So it's a cool. So Joe, you can tell that Joe has also studied a lot of different things by his questions, right? Cool. That's awesome. I would say that if you've studied a lot of different things and you're still not where you're at, it's time to start implementing the stuff that Maggie's talking about, because that will make the difference. But you still have to do the work, right? So this whole idea of write a book, become an expert type of a thing, which you see people market online still. I just saw an ad for it the other day and wrote a really snarky post, and then I typed it into a text doc and deleted it. I didn't post it on Facebook. This whole model started with a guy named Dan Kennedy, and he was an information marketer. He still is. And the idea was you create a book to stand out from everybody else. Now, that was before self-publishing became as prevalent as it is today. It was also before being a bestseller on Amazon was a thing. And now you'll see a bunch of people saying, become a best-selling Amazon author, and now you'll have this book funnel that brings in new clients and all this BS. And it's just that. It's BS. Nobody looks at Amazon as a bestseller and thinks that's a legit thing. Now, if you're going to be a New York Times bestseller, that's pretty fucking awesome, right? Here's the reason why there's an issue with writing a book. How long is it going to take you to write a book? It's going to take you weeks and weeks and weeks and months and months and months and maybe even a year or 2 years to write a good book. Dan Kennedy's model was never about writing a really good book. It was about trying to write something that you could use as basically a giveaway to prospects, right? But that was with marketing that only converted at, on the front end, 1 or 2%. And then the book was given after they opted in for something, and that was supposed to convince them that you were the expert. Maggie has shifted that, especially in this industry, right, where you don't have to do that. And so I made the mistake where I wrote this download for the internet that ended up being an 80-page booklet. And it took me 2 fucking months. It took me like 2 months to write this thing, and I was getting excited about it. And then I had to have it edited. 2 months of writing, and then I had to have it edited, right? And then I got it edited, and then I had to have it formatted for the internet in an ebook format. And so now we're 3 or 4 months out, where in that whole time, nobody was getting the book. Nobody was learning about me. Yet I could have been doing what Maggie teaches in her course for lead generation and selling my stuff. So I lost almost half a year, right? And here's the kicker. Nobody reads the fucking book anyway. How many books do you have on your shelf where you haven't even, there's no crease on the spine because you haven't even cracked it, right? Mm-hmm. So it's a novel idea and it's cool and there's ways to do it. It's not the best idea. I don't think it's a good idea until, as Leela says, and Leela is also one of my mentors, until you're already established. It's not the thing to do to establish yourself. And there's actually a really good quote, and it says, inside everybody is a book. And with most people, that's where it should stay. And it's not Leela's quote. It's another quote. And it's just hilarious because it's true. Like, there's so much stuff out there, and there's so much junk that people are putting out there. You might not need a book, and it takes time. And sure, you can have ghostwriters, and even then it takes time. Really, if you're going to get a book out there and you want it to make an impact, it's through traditional publishing methods, and that's going to take you 1.5 to 2 years through a real publisher. And then you're still going to then have to spend tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars to market the shit out of it to get it to sell, right? The book as a business card idea kind of went away. Like, get your business to $150,000, $200,000, $300,000 a year, and then go spend some time writing a book and getting it out there because you have something to say.
Well, and yeah, and I want to kind of like tie this in and kind of, you know, knock the ball out of the park, so to speak. Here's the thing, Joe. When I have a client come to me and they're like, hey, I'm thinking about writing a book, or, you know, that's part of the vision, and they haven't started a fusion program, this is what I tell them. Look, all of the ideas and the content and the direction and the help that you want to put inside of a book, use that same information and create your fusion program, because you're going to get paid for it before it's even put out there, right? It's going to not force you, but it's going to realign you with better marketing practices, with better, you know, more holistic business model anyway. It's going to update and improve all kinds of things in your business just as a direct result, yeah? And then, you know, put that passion, put that information, put that knowledge into your coursework and get paid for it. And then, like Graves says, when you have that experience, you've built that up in your, you know, if I kind of, here, bring the slides back here a little bit, you know, when you get to that place.
Not seeing the slides.
Here we go. Hold on. Oh, wait. I got to click on the thing.
Click on it.
I'm clicking on it.
Click the thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when you get to this, when you go from that $72,000 to that, you know, what is it? I can't see it because all my stuff is crowding it here.
360,000.
Yeah, to that 360. That's the point where it's like, okay, if you want to do a book, if you are a passionate writer, and that's your thing, that's the thing that really brings you joy, then a book is an amazing idea.
Absolutely.
Right? And I think that's ultimately what it comes down to is, you know, books are great as long as you're doing it not to make money. As long as it's not part of your money-making strategy, it's awesome. Like, I encourage my clients that are good at writing to write. You know, I want them to do that.
Yep.
But it's not part of that, you know, moving from that 72 to 360K.
Yeah.
Yeah, put your knowledge into that course first, get up to that 360, right? And then let's get you to write a book.
Yep. Let's get your hours from 60 down to 40. Let's get your days a week from 6 or 7 down to 5. Let's get your income from 72 up to 360. So it's your passion, if that's your passion. And if it's not, if your passion is goat yoga, do goat yoga.
She's awesome, man. She's talking about selling her place, moving up to the mountains, mean, like, her whole life has changed the last year. I'm so proud of Kristen.
Yeah, she's awesome.
By the way,
Candace says
huh?
thank you. Candace
Oh,
says thank you, and Victoria says thank you tons. Both of us are wonderful people. We have fooled them. No,
you.
thank you,
I was
Victoria.
actually going to say the same thing. I was like, thank you guys. I know we've gone over time. And, thank you also to Graves for, sticking with us. The fact we've still got a really good percentage of everybody on here still tells me that everybody's listening. You're taking notes, and like, major kudos to you guys. This is a really huge moment for me too, to be sharing this with everybody, because this is literally the most top-notch information that has been shared about online courses in the dog industry, and I feel really blessed and honored to be the one kind of sharing this stuff with you guys. So I just wanted to give a huge shout out to everyone that's joining me and joining Graves and just us in general, that, like, thank you for creating this space with me. I really appreciate it. I was blown away at the amount of interest that was actually shown in this topic too. So thank you to everybody that's here with us. Cool. Any remaining
Yeah.
questions? Anything we didn't cover, Mr. Gravesies?
No, a lot of people saying, Joe saying thank you, Sandra saying thank you, Lucinda saying this is awesome, lots to think about. Michelle is saying loves it, thank you. Lucinda says thanks. Regina says lots of fantastic information and thanks a bunch.
Awesome sauce. Thank you, everybody. I really appreciate all the amazing feedback and the questions, and you guys make my job a hell of a lot easier when you're engaged. So it's
Totally.
fantastic. Awesome. Well, thank you again so much, Graves, for joining us and kind of sharing your own side to everything. Because I know you've been involved in so much of this. It first really kind of hit the interwebs, and thank you for giving us lots of updates in the dog industry.
Yeah, absolutely. My
And
pleasure.
man, and my subsequent, like, I don't know, what do they say, work husband. 'Cause we do work together a lot. If I'm at home, my real husband Ryan makes me coffee. If I have to go out, to LA and work, you make me coffee. I cannot complain.
It's
Everywhere I
pretty
go,
hard.
the coffee. Your coffee's your coffee's a little better though. I'm gonna only say that because, like, Ryan's not in my office right now.
His brisket has to be better though. So.
Well, Ryan does have the better meat. I'm not gonna lie. All right, everybody. Terrible.
Happy holidays. Remember, if any of you are finally ready to do this, which you should, don't sit on it for another 4 months or 12 or 4 years. Thank you again for
Yeah.
sharing that.
I know. I'm
Now,
amazed at, like, how many people I've seen here that have either been through the evolution course, or I've done consults with you. Like, you guys have known about this for a while. Time to get on it. You
yeah, yeah.
That's why I was like, it's time to break the silence, because the people in the Leadership Guild are just like, they're literally out there breaking records almost on a weekly basis, and it's just, yeah, we everybody just needs to start doing this, and at some point, it's already leaking out there. I've got people stealing our shit and stuff, and it's fine. It's just, we need to be out there as a community making things better, and that kind of goes back to that whole grassroots value system that I'm very much tied to. So let's get some good work done together, everybody. All right, happy holidays. You guys are awesome. I will talk to you all later. Thank you again, Graves, for joining us. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Happy holidays.
Bye, everyone. Woot woot.
Maggie at grassrootsdog.com.
What up? Should I sing a song for everybody? I think I should.
They're still on.
Yeah, they are.
Oh,
Just
they're
because
logging out.
one. Are they still? They can go away now. It's okay. I'll still sing a song. Wait, what am I doing?
You're
Oh,
singing Flight of the Conchords.
wait. I just started learning this one. Give me a second.
Bow, 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 bow.
Yeah. Looking around
Looking around the room, I can tell the two
beautiful girl and the girl
room in
and
the
the
whole wide room.
yeah. And when you're on the street, depending on the street. I bet you are definitely
in the top three.
good-looking girls on the street. Girl, depending on the street. When I saw you at my man's place, I thought,
what is she doing?
At my man's
place.
I had it like that to a party like this.
Good one, Dave.
You're a
legend, Dave.
Yeah, I asked Dave if he's gonna make a move on you. He's not sure. I'm not Dave. Do you mind if
I do?
Mind, but I can tell he kind of minds. But I'm gonna
do it anyway.
By the stereo, turn the lights down to very
low. Here we go.
Oh, beautiful. Take it on, Graves. That's so
an airline hostess in the 60s.
You're so beautiful. Like a tree. Yeah.
Or a high class one of them things.
I seal the deal. I do my dance moves. Both of my dance moves.
Hop in the cab, I'll buy you a kebab.
It's 12 to 2, it's just me and you, and 7 of the dudes around. I draw your hair. Let's get in a cab, I'll buy you a kebab, and I can't believe that I'm sharing that kebab
with the most beautiful girl that I have ever seen with a kebab.
Ooh, yeah. Why don't we leave? Oh, we can go to my house and we can feel each other
up on the couch. No, I don't mind taking it slow.
Yeah, you're so beautiful, like a tree or high-class prostitute. I can't believe I'm singing this song at the end of a webinar. You're so beautiful. You can spend part of your time modeling. And part of your
time
next to me.
Yeah.
This is usually tidier than this. Thank you so much for joining us for a lovely webinar. We really appreciate it. Have a good night, y'all.
Happy holidays.
Bye.